Welcome to Adobe Campaign Training and this session on drop-downs, visibleIf, and system filters. After completing this training, you should be able to define drop-down menus on form fields, configure a case for data inputs, create form field conditions, and secure field data. This will allow you to take greater control over your form fields and add customized operations to the input and editing of form data. Drop-down lists and enumerations can be used in Adobe Campaign forms. Drop-down fields in the form are achieved through the use of an enumerated list. When we specify the elements of an enumerated list with a set of defined values, it means that we are controlling the input that can be used by the operator. This makes it easier on a marketer, for example, because when they open up the values in a drop-down list, they can simply select the value and they don't have to worry about spelling, case, or other possible problems. What we're looking at below is a system enumeration, that is, it's embedded into the schema or in a common library that's used by multiple schemas. So for example, here we've created an enumeration called rewards member with the base type of byte and with a default value of 0, meaning it will display the value with the value of 0. So here there are three values defined: unknown, gold, and silver. And then they have the labels, which are what will appear in the drop list. Data policy examples have been covered in other sessions, but they allow us to control how an attribute is allowed to be saved into the database. So for example, if I'm saving a string that is someone's first name, I can apply the data policy of smart case. It means the first letter will be capitalized and all subsequent letters will be lowercase. I could use that also for the middle name and the last name. I can also apply data policy for emails so that I get the proper format for an email, meaning text, the @ symbol, more text, a dot, and then more text, so that the physical structure of the text matches up to what's required for an email address. I can also do this for a phone, so whether it's used for a landline or for a mobile, it means that I'm restricted to just putting in numbers and possibly the plus sign for international calling codes. A visibleIf condition can be used on certain blocks of data that's being displayed in a form. And of course, through our form training, we know that these are called containers. And so we can set up conditions that control whether or not that container appears based on particular business logic. So for example, if we're asking for a postal code if the country is Canada or UK, or if we're asking for a rewards club member if the person is actually enrolled in the rewards club membership program. To conditionally display a group of fields, we add these attributes to the container that holds the fields. I put in the type as visible group, and because it's defined as a visible group, there is then a visibleIf expression, which will define the logic that controls whether or not the group is displayed. So here, for example, we have an outer container, which has a column count of 2 and will span 2 columns. The label of the container is membership and the type is frame. Within that frame is an input field with an XPath entry, so that we're adding the data into the enrolled attribute of whatever schema type is defined. And then we have a nested container within the outer container. It also has 2 column counts and a column span of 2. And the type of this container is visible group. And you see the visibleIf condition is the enrolled value. If enrolled is a Boolean, meaning it has the value of true or false, what that means is if the person is actually enrolled, then this container will be visible. If the value of enrolled is false, then the visible condition is false and the container will not be displayed. So if it's displayed, the person would see a container that shows their enrollment date and their membership points. If the person was not enrolled, then this container simply would not be displayed. We can also apply system filters in forms. Recall that when you display an entity in a form, you may filter it using the system filter tag. I can put the filter in the schema, which means it's an overall filter and applies wherever the schema definition is used. I can also put it in the form, which means it's a local filter to the form itself. The purpose of using system filters in forms is to provide a way to secure the data, like for example with a restricted access list. Certain entities are only visible to certain operators or operator groups, depending on the person's login account when they log into Adobe Campaign. System filters enable row-level data restrictions, and they can be linked to the rights of an operator or operator group. System filters are used to control the visibility of an entire record, that is, an entire row in the table in the database. It does not restrict individual fields within a form. A system filter example might look something like this. The system filter tag is used inside of an input tag, and you see that the normal input tag that we have here, where I have input XPath as customer, that gives us a text field where we can enter in the customer. But because I've broken out the simple input tag into a compound tag, and I can insert the system filter conditions inside of the input tag, that means that the input field is restricted by the system filter. The condition that we see here says that the customers that will be displayed are based on the following condition. There is an expression, and it says go into the recipient's folder definition and get the label. And if the person's label for the folder that they're contained in is training, then we'll display those customers. Customers that lived in any other folder other than training would not be displayed. So in this training, we've learned how to create drop-down menus on form fields, the best method for configuring case for data inputs by using dataPolicy. We've seen how to create form field conditions, which control the data that's displayed in a drop list, for example, and how to secure field data.